Hello and welcome to another episode of the Samuel Beck podcast. Thank you for joining us today. How are you? I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. Today we're going to be talking about the Odyssey. It just came out in theaters a couple days ago, and I can't stop thinking about it. I can't stop dreaming about it. It's one of the best movies I've seen this year so far, outside of, Hail Mary. Even if you're not a big epic poem guy or girly, it doesn't matter if you like the Iliad or, Dante or any of those like old books for no reason. You can still go check out the Odyssey and still be able to take something away from it. I think what's really cool is the public discourse is all over the place. Um, but you have to remember a couple of key things just on the outside looking in before you go and get sucked into the whirlwind that is the dumpster fire of the internet. It's that there were some really divisive choices that he made kind of in the second half of the movie where, he was able to tell this story of Odysseus with his group of men. And Matt, yeah, Matt Damon did a pretty good job. And I'm trying to remember some of the supporting characters, but it follows Matt Damon as he kind of conquers the sea of monsters and witches and giants and a cyclops, all for the sake of returning home. And his real suffering is in the idea that he can both save the suffering of the people around him and not fully deal with the consequences of his own actions. It's like being smart enough to know what you have to do and then being not brave enough to deal with the consequences of knowing what you have to do. So he, of course, in the first, whatever you want to call trimester, we know about the Trojan horse and how he hides his men. And it does a really good job of just making you feel the barbaric, visceral challenge that is to do something so crude like invade a gift for sake of, military gain. But the thing that he struggles with the most is that not really putting his body through this torment or even convincing his men that anything that he says is a good idea. It's known that he's smart. It's known that he's one of the most witty and creative generals that, you know, the Roman people can rely on. The problem lies in the fact that he is so self aware. He does believe he has a higher calling to both make the right decision and make both the right and ethical decision. And I think a battle of ethics is the oldest thing in time. However, the battle of ethics done really well in Christopher Nolan's Odyssey is that it's so fast paced that these decisions don't have the time to be mulled over in the sense of how, as an audience member, we can mull over the decision of, you know, Odysseus or Agamemnon for years and argue about it with scholars all day. I think it's mostly trying to put you in the shoes of a person who is so present that the consequences are coming just as fast as the decisions are. We don't see that a lot anymore. We don't see anybody kind of deal with the consequences of their actions um, at the rapid speed that maybe somebody who's living day to day life or death would be. And so it's a lot easier to sit back and relax and kind of say, this is what I would have done, or, you know, actually, you could have done this. It's easier to kind of sit back and coach from the armchair kind of a situation when very rarely now as a people are we put in those situations, at least, in America, where you can so easily feel the repercussions of your actions that are taken out of practicality and more of like a sociopathic gain of success. Like I'm eliminating all emotions. I just want to win in this situation, which is how a lot of people in any great empire think, because that's how you survive. That's how you win. You don't win by just like, you don't win by thinking about feelings all the time. You don't win by thinking about, the structural fallout of sneaking all your men into this horse and saying it's a gift, and then disgracing the gods, and then slaughtering an entire, city. And so in this film, it kind of does a great job of exposing to you the life within a world that is based on simple rules, like the golden rule. And it's spoken as Zeus's rule, but it's just the rule of, treat people how you want to be treated. Don't cross the unspoken lines of humanity, and then we're all gonna have a good time, right? And when people's backs are put against the wall, I think that line gets blurrier and blurrier and blurrier. And so you live in a world where it doesn't exist. And Odysseus is coming to grips with the fact that he has created a world where this metaphorical line doesn't exist anymore. He's become the monster. And the love is what keeps him on a path of commitment to his word. But he also understands that his words to many people means nothing because he betrayed the gods. And yes, you have Zendaya, you got Tom Holland, you got Anne Hathaway doing a great job, you got Lupita doing a great job, and you you even have the Punisher in there. And it's kind of refreshing seeing a bunch of A-list actors kind of fall into a role where the story overtakes them. It's really hard to be a recognizable actor and not feel as an audience member like you're just watching, for example, Tom Holland. He's Spider-Man. When he did that Uncharted 4 movie, he did Uncharted. Nobody saw Nathan Drake. They were like, oh, that's Spider-Man doing the Uncharted series. Or when you saw, Zendaya in Euphoria, she does a good job of like capturing Rue. That was one of her breakout roles of, maybe not everybody in that series, but Zendaya did a really good job of portraying addiction and capturing Rue. And it was just really refreshing to see everybody kind of go at it and put their best foot forward, because there are so many themes in the Odyssey that will stand the test of time, regret, revenge, and what it means to be victorious, right? Even as you move forward in a world that doesn't necessarily bend its will towards you, it doesn't make it easier to be successful. It doesn't make it easier to achieve what you want to achieve and to protect the people that you want to protect. How do you move forward in a way that is so in line with your character that you leave a world that you respect enough that it feels like it was all for a purpose? And sometimes that purpose can just be children. Sometimes that purpose can be family. Sometimes that purpose can be identity or principle. But most people don't think about any of those things. They think about what's going to stuff their pocket or what's going to be able to change the day to day reality that they have. So a lot of the side characters are very relatable in that sense of survival is king, life is king. And if they're not wearing our same colors, let's get them out of there, bro. Like it's as simple as that. And I think it's so nice when you have Ludwig, who's done a lot of the soundtracks for movies like Oppenheimer. He did Sinners. Anything that he touches is fire. I think he created a new instrument. I think I saw that somewhere for the catalog. And then they have Travis Scott in there. I think he does a couple of songs for the soundtrack. And the way that they used Travis Scott was so that you could kind of understand during this time, not everybody read, not everybody read in ancient Greece. Um, the way that stories were able to be carried from one generation to the next is that songs had to be so catchy and so true in a sense, like powerful, that you would memorize the song. You would sing the song all the time, and then that song would get passed down. And then the kid would hear it, he'd recite the song, and then it'd get passed down. And that would happen over and over again. That happened so many times with the Odyssey that finally somebody comes in and writes it down. And so the arguments for uh, books like, the Odyssey or Iliad is the interpretation from all the things that you may or may not have lost during that time period where you're looking at people who aren't literate, like not media literate, not literate. They don't know how to read. They spend all day doing whatever they have to do to make ends meet. Sound familiar? And so as we kind of move forward, I think the similarities can run so strongly that it is a divisive topic because it's about the decision of how you choose to live. I think the best part of some of the choices that he made were the action scenes because they are visceral and they are long and they are loud. And if you have the chance to sit through it, it's one of those where you are consumed by the reality very quickly. You aren't kind of on the bubble seat on the outside looking in, and that's very difficult to do, especially for a film, for a story that you already know. To be able to submerge your audience quickly and in depth enough to then let your choices be the forefront of the story that you're telling. That's a good movie. And maybe I'm a favorite because he has such a long catalog. He has The Prestige, Interstellar. Is Inception Christopher Nolan? I'm not Google it. Jamie, the Memento. Christopher Nolan is one of those guys who likes to use twists and turns for his movies, like a conceptual twist, like Tenet. He takes the idea of time and stretches it across what is a 2.5 hour, 3 hour spy action film, and then uses entropy, which is the idea of how time moves forward and backwards as one of the plot devices. So that one was a hard watch. You gotta watch it like 4 or 5 times. I don't know how somebody watches it on the first time and gets it because it's one of those like you're time traveling backwards and forwards. But he always has kind of these decisions that make you think longer than you have time to watch the movie. And Odyssey, I think, is like that as well. But instead of it being a full twist and turn of, whoa, I didn't know he was going to do that because the story has already been written. It's more of the choices of what he keeps in and what he takes out because then it turns into his version of the story. How, Odysseus chooses to see his fate and then apply that fate to how he speaks to his men or the listening to the sirens or, you know, uh, Circe's and that scene where they basically go on to this island and run into Circe, who's a witch, and she morphs them into pigs. That scene is so visceral. Um, and they actually used, they didn't use any CGI for that shot. They didn't use any CGI for that. I think it was hair and makeup. Still, that's one that'll sit with you because it was gross. That was crazy. But stuff like that where he makes just certain decisions that you wouldn't expect. I think that's kind of my take on it. I'm probably gonna watch it again to see if I can get anything more out of it. But if you can, I would go watch it. I guess something that I'd walk away with it is that, your destiny, your fate, your decisions are so deeply embedded in just what it is that you want to do, the choices that you make, the person that you are, that the easiest way to stay on path with it is to never stop moving forward. If you deny yourself resolution, it will only leave you out in metaphorical sea for decades, struggling to come to terms with the story that is your life. And when you're surrounded by the right people or even the wrong people, they will help you dive deeper into that identity, which is what you have done, who you are, what you will do. And if you hold on to that, I think a lot of times we all have our own odysseys. That'll be the episode for today. I will see you guys in the next one. Always double check to make sure your phone is charging. And yeah.